I am Dr. Nick, the Apostle Paul's messenger in this 21st century world.
What message would the Apostle Paul deliver to a 21st century American audience if he were alive today?
The author has written
an open letter about creation and life. By trusting God in the miracle of new life.
Greetings, this is Dr. Nick, and I'm the Apostle Paul's messenger here in the 21st century. And what I'd like to do, because in a few days, in 3 days, as a matter of fact, at least in the United States of America, there's going to be celebrating a national holiday, Thanksgiving. And this is really an important topic, giving thanks, because the Apostle Paul spoke about that. And we're going to talk about what he said and take a look at challenges of giving thanks, because there is a challenge, but there's also times when we feel very thankful about things. There's times when we don't feel thankful. And what did Paul say about those times as well? This is what we're going to be taking a look at. But before we do that, I just want to give a brief history of the celebration of Thanksgiving here in the United States. Now, the holiday really began more with just a spontaneous giving thanks by the pilgrims and their some of the Indians that were living in the area of Massachusetts during the I guess 1621 was the year that they had a 3-day feast, and it was wonderful that they could just get together. When I read this, I said the pilgrims and the Indians got together and they had a 3-day. Wow, that's great. I always thought they were like always after each other, and there was a lot of confrontation. I guess they had a good crop that year, all of them. And they said, you know what, let's give thanks to God, because obviously there was a lot of sweat. There was a lot of backbreaking work. We ended up in the harvest season, and they just had an abundance of things to eat, and they were so happy. And I guess in those days they would can these things and keep them for the winter and wait until the next season comes up, plant some of those seeds again, and see how they develop. They were very happy about that. That happened in 1621. Now, after the American Revolution, every year, or sometimes they would skip a year, they would forget, but generally after the Revolution, where we knew we had gained our independence as a nation, and we were very happy about that. And the various presidents during those years used to mention to the American citizens that we should really be thankful to God for what he provided for us. We could be under some kind of a monarch control. We can be under some kind of a dictatorial socialistic situation. But here we are in a democracy, representative democracy. In 1863, great Abraham Lincoln, in the midst of the Civil War, proclaimed a day of Thanksgiving to be celebrated on the final Thursday of November. Now, listen to those words, the final Thursday. But then in December of 1941, Congress established the fourth Thursday of November as the federal holiday of Thanksgiving. And so it had begun to celebrate this since 1942. I would think that maybe in some years there might be a fifth Thursday in November, and they didn't want to say the last Thursday, because then it might, confuse people that one year we're doing it a little earlier and this year we're doing it very late. So they said the fourth Thursday of November each year would be the time when we would give thanks as a people and to think about it. So it's important not only to have it officially issued as a proclamation and as a day where I guess you could, the employers would let everybody off. It's a national holiday. And I guess as a result of it being on the Thursday, many people start taking off on Friday. So then it became a 4-day weekend for most people anyway. There's two authors of this research. Emiliana Simpson Thomas. She is a science director of the Greater Good Science Center, and it doesn't say where that is, but that's what her job is. And Jeremy Adam Smith from the University of California at Berkeley. And they put together a survey, and here's some of the results. They said Americans are generally thankful people with a strong cultural tradition of expressing gratitude, particularly around Thanksgiving. Now, I know that's true in my life. I know that Thanksgiving is coming up, and when we actually have gotten together with family on Thanksgiving, either me and my wife around with our children, or sometimes we would invite relatives or friends as well. Particularly if people didn't have friends or family in the area, we would invite them. And we would always go around the table and say, what was one thing that you really are thankful for that happened to you in the last year? And that's really exciting to hear what people have to say, and to see how change has actually been incorporated into many of our lives just in a year's time. So we used to do that. But, sometimes after that idea of Thanksgiving, the idea of giving thanks, the idea of being thankful in general and your disposition about what's happening to you in your life, sometimes we forget. But generally speaking, nearly 9 in 10 Americans report feeling thankful during the Thanksgiving season. So like I just said, we would think about things that happened to us that were good over the past year, with a majority citing family and health as their primary reasons. Older family members may say, thank God that I didn't have a heart attack, or whatever the case may be. Or thank God our family has grown, we have new children, our kids have graduated from school, they got jobs. We might be thankful, citing family reasons why we're thankful, okay? A 2012 study, and I was a little surprised by this because I didn't think it was a big number. 63% of Americans give thanks to God. Now, I'm not sure whether they're saying give thanks to God around the table, or they generally give thanks to God at that particular level. I thought 63% was very low. I find myself, of course, I'm someone that tries to grow more and more spiritual in my life, but I find myself thanking God for things that happened to me. A situation comes up and you didn't expect it and it was really great, or even if you struggle through something and you get through it, you say, thank God, thank you, God, for being here. That's not always the best way of doing it. Wait to the end. It should be thanking God, and we'll talk about that when you see what St. Paul says. Thanking God as it's happening as well. Thanking God for even the struggles that we go through. Because God, if we really think about it, living the Christian life, or living close to God in any particular religious environment, I'll put it that way, is something that it's a matter of trust. And that's hard for us humans to do, that we just surrender. God, I know you're in the midst of this situation, and I am so happy, and I am so excited, and I know it's going to turn out okay, because if it turns out with some hardship, well, then that hardship is an opportunity to grow. If it turns out with a lot of benefits, then that's even better, or just as better, I should say. And it's very difficult to go through life with being thankful, even when it is a struggle. But 63%, I just think that's a little low. And I'm not perfect. I'm not 100%, because there's times I say, God, what the heck are you doing to me? That's not being thankful. That's being, a little critical. And, anyway, 57% say they're happy with family. I thought that was low too. That means 43% you're not happy. I think family life should at least be on the higher side of enjoyment and happiness. And it's not always true for everyone. I know that. But this one really stunned me. 31% of people say they're thankful for their friends. Well, I guess family is more important. That's not true. Family and friends are important. And God is ultimately more important. So I think needs to be a little upgrade there in the American culture. Now they go into saying that there's a gratitude gap, that Americans express their gratitude more for, in this case, God, family, and friends, but least they do it, or at least to those people. You say, God, thank you, or thank your family, or you thank your friends. But most people in the everyday environment aren't as accustomed to saying thank you as things are going on in everyday life. And I know I work very hard at trying to thank people, especially when I go to a restaurant. The waiter or waitress would come over and say, would you like to have anything to drink? And I usually say, yes, I'll have some water with lemon and everything like that. So I says, thank you very much. They come back with the order. Thank you very much. They ask you what your order is. You give them your order. They say, okay, I'll be right back. Thank you. There was a time when I had to work at that, and then after they bring the meal, thank you. See, it's acknowledging that somebody's working for you, and it's important. Now, what I usually do is I clean up. I usually put all the stuff that's all around the table and put it on the side there, so the waiter or whoever comes to pick up the who's going to clean up for the next customers doesn't have to work extra hard to pick up everything up. I usually put everything on the side. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying that it's my way of saying thank you. And I've had to really work at that. But there's a gap, a gratitude gap in the American culture. And one of the areas that they say that really is pronounced is in the workplace. And I can see that. I worked for 40, 50 years. I retired at 69 and I still keep busy. So it's important that you get recognized for what you do. It's important that people say you did a good job. Even if it's in a volunteer situation, really appreciate everything that you're doing. That's important that we do. Instead of criticizing, we're complimenting, or at least trying to accentuate the effort that person gave. I think that that's important in our culture. And apparently that is not done as much. They talk about employment, but I would say even in a volunteer situation, if you're retired like I am and my wife is, and many people in the area where we live, we do all kinds of volunteer things. People saying thank you to us. We should make an effort, and we should make an effort to thank people that do things to help us as well. I think generally, and they even mention here that seniors, people over the age of 70, report a higher level of daily thankfulness. So I guess you're not under the pressure of a work environment where you're competing to some extent with other people. And people hold back saying thanks because they don't want you to shine better than them. Or the boss doesn't want to say thank you for the great job, because then you might say, well, can I have a raise? But maybe you deserve a raise. Employers hold back a little bit too. So that's interesting. Now, I have just a few other comments here, and then I'm going to talk about what St. Paul would say. Okay. When asked about most people today, not themselves, but people that they deal with, people in general say gratitude levels were declining. Only 19% selected the option that most people today are more likely to have an attitude of gratitude than 20 years ago. So less than 20%, just slightly less than 20% of the people, 1 in 5, are saying, yeah, I think people are more gratitude. But 4 out of 5 say that they think the hearing and having that as a cultural norm, things that we can hold on to and say, yeah, our American people are very thankful, and they express it a lot. People say that it's declining. So that might be something we need to take a look at. And then when I talk about what St. Paul says, then what gives it another little dimension here. Okay, 60% thought that people are less likely to express gratitude today than even 100 years ago. Now, I don't know what happened 100 years ago, because unless you're 110 years old, even then you might not remember 100 years back. So the important thing is what would the Apostle Paul say about gratitude? And I'm going to read that right here. It's from his first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 5, verses 16 through 18. Now, this was a challenge for me. I want to be honest. Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Whoa. Okay. Rejoice always. I can't say that I'm always joyful. Maybe it's my personality, how I grew up. I'm working at it though. And I think it's a good quality is, people used to say, Nick, why aren't you smiling? You're such a great guy and you're such a nice guy and you're really jovial and social, but you look like you're down in the dumps a little bit. Rejoice always. That's not easy because we all go through the ups and downs of everyday life. I guess what Paul is saying is there's a great spiritual value in having a sense of joyfulness, even in the midst of trouble. Wow. That's growing spiritually, because then what you're doing is you're trusting that the circumstances you're in are not really controlled by you as much as it's controlled by God. God knows our circumstances. God helps us through those. God directs us and gives us the grace to go in the right direction. God is there. And sometimes we think, oh, what a struggle. What happened to God? He fell asleep? No, he didn't fall asleep. God is always there for us, 100%. And you know what? We don't always think that way. We get down in the dumps. We think, oh, life is miserable. It's going in the wrong direction, whatever the case may be. Pray without ceasing. Now, I have to admit that I don't always, you can't formally pray without ceasing. You wouldn't do anything else. But it's having the spirit of talking to God about your day. And I do that a lot. I go, oh, okay, Lord, I'm going into a meeting now. I just really want to give this time to you. And I know it's important. Just give me the right words, give me the right attitude, give me the right disposition, especially if I know there's going to be some discord. Just help me out in these situations. We really need to constantly talk to God about our situation. It's not always going to be pleasant. It's not always going to be the way we want it to be. Sometimes we have to defer to other people, and that doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen for me. It doesn't always happen for them. We have to rejoice always because we know that in the end, it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be all that anxiety, all that doubt, all that fear was just, it added stress, wear and tear to your body, and it didn't help. But when you rejoice always, confidence in God, confidence in yourself, confidence in the gifts God has given you. When you're at that point, then you're doing what Paul is saying. The prayer can just be every day. God, it's a great day. Thank you for giving me this day. You can talk to God all day long. Pray without ceasing. It's really talking to God without ceasing. Even when you're talking to your spouse or your boss or something like that. Well, you know what? I'm talking to you from my spiritual point of view, which I give to God and which he enriches me with. So you're connecting to God anyway. So when I read this, I said, there are definitely circumstances where there's a tragedy that happens to a family member. They die or they got into an accident and they lost a limb or anything could happen. And it's scary. I mean, I just gave it away. I'm scared. But there is a human factor to this that really comes in and you lose your job. You lose a position that you had. You lose a friendship. Somebody turns on you for whatever reason. And it's not easy. So you say, well, how can you be joyful during those times? Sometimes I don't even talk to God because I might be like, what did you do that to me for? It's the last thing I needed. It's the last thing I needed. But so I'm not rejoicing. I'm not praying. Well, maybe I'm complaining to God. I guess that's a prayer. But I'm not thankful in all those circumstances. I got to think about that. It's a challenge. But if you can live that way, you are a dynamite situation. Now, I'm going to end. I think you got the message. But I was reading something and I had a laugh at some of this stuff. And I just want to share it with you. Maybe you could share it on Thanksgiving dinner with your friends. What did the turkey say when he met the president of the United States? Pardon me? I guess he ran into the president. Pardon me. Pardon me? Bad joke, huh? What did the turkey say to the turkey hunter on Thanksgiving Day? So the hunter's coming up. He's going to grab the turkey. He's going to take him to somebody's dinner. What did he say as he's being approached by this hunter? Quack, quack. I know that's stupid, but I'm sorry. I had to say that. This is what from our newspaper around here. So it's called Golden Laughs. I guess golden means old people's laughs. All right. And then the last thing is, if you can survive this, I'm sorry. Okay, the last thing is, what's the best way to save money? They've done this study. What's the best way to save money on Black Friday? What is it? Tell me. I want to know how I can save more money on Black Friday. Stay home. God bless. We'll see you. And thank you for listening. And thank you for your humor. You got to have humor in life. You got to have humor. I know it's silly sometimes, but humor is great. So trust in God. Pray always. Give thanks in every situation. And live happy and thankful and joyful and stress-free, because that's the way God created us. Amen. So thanks for joining me today on Dr. Nick, the Apostle Paul's messenger. I hope this message touches your heart and gives you something to consider. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe so you never miss a conversation, and click that bell. That's important. Okay? And if you found value in today's discussion, please share it with your friends who might need to hear it. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So connect with me by emailing me at drnick, that's Dr. Nick, drnick, Apostle Paul's Messenger @gmail.com. Send in your questions, and let's keep this conversation moving. Until next time, stay strong in the faith, stand firm in the truth, and remember, you are never alone on this journey. God bless.